The rain was not a gentle drizzle but a furious, biblical deluge that turned the streets of Louisville, Kentucky, into rushing rivers of asphalt and despair. It was the kind of rain that felt personal, a malevolent force determined to wash away the last remnants of hope from a world that had already taken so much. And it was in this maelstrom that Arthur Jenkins, a man whose own life had been a perpetual state of storm, saw a figure crumpled on the side of the road. Her white uniform was a stark beacon of fragility against the brutal, gray concrete, a sight that made his heart clench with a visceral fear he knew all too well. In the split second it took for his headlights to illuminate her, he was not a man making a choice, but a father driven by an instinct so primal it bypassed logic. This was a survivor's reflex, born from years of holding his own broken world together. If you believe in the power of a single, selfless act to change the course of a life, then please, like, comment, share, and subscribe to this channel. Your engagement helps us share more stories of hope and humanity. Arthur's old, rusted pickup truck, a faithful steed that had seen better decades, screeched to a halt. He didn't even think about the danger of a stranger, the potential for a setup, or the fact that his daughter was home alone. He only saw a woman, soaked and shivering, her face a mask of pain. He threw open the passenger door, the cold rain instantly soaking his worn flannel shirt. "Ma'am? Ma'am, are you all right?" he yelled over the roaring storm. The woman, who he would later learn was named Samantha, tried to stand but winced, clutching her ankle. Her eyes, the color of a stormy sea, were filled with a mixture of pain and a startling, sharp alertness that seemed to assess him in a single, penetrating glance. He helped her into the truck, his strong, calloused hands surprisingly gentle. The interior of the cab smelled of rain, old coffee, and the faint, sweet scent of the vanilla air freshener his daughter, Chloe, had insisted on. In that moment, the sterile, dangerous world of undercover operations collided with the warm, cluttered reality of a single father's life. Samantha wasn't just a nurse. She was a detective with the Louisville Metro Police Department, deep undercover in a massive drug trafficking ring. Her ankle was a genuine injury, the result of a fall during a desperate escape from a sting gone wrong. She had been minutes away from being compromised, her cover blown, and quite possibly her life ended. Arthur's truck was not a sanctuary but a temporary shield, an unexpected variable in a meticulously planned operation. As he drove, chattering nervously about the terrible weather and the dangers of a slick road, she studied him. His hands were rough, his clothes were cheap and frayed at the cuffs, and his vehicle was held together with what looked like duct tape and prayers. He wasn't the type she usually encountered in her line of work. He was an open book, his anxieties and worries written plainly on his tired face. He spoke of his daughter, Chloe, and his voice softened into a melody of pure, unadulterated love, a sound so genuine it was almost painful for Samantha to hear in the midst of her dark, fabricated world. Chloe was a 10-year-old girl with a heart as big as the sky and a body ravaged by a rare, aggressive form of leukemia. Arthur's wife had left them both just after the diagnosis, unable to bear the strain, leaving Arthur to navigate the labyrinthine nightmare of hospital visits, mounting medical bills, and the crushing weight of single parenthood. He worked double shifts at a mechanic's shop, often falling asleep at the kitchen table trying to balance his checkbook, which was always a losing battle. Every penny was accounted for, every sacrifice made for the fragile life of his daughter. Bringing home a complete stranger was a risk he couldn't afford, but it was also a risk he was constitutionally incapable of ignoring. It was simply who he was. He insisted on driving Samantha to the emergency room, but she refused, her training screaming at her to maintain her cover story as a nurse who was just trying to get home after a long shift. She gave him a false address, a worn-out apartment complex on the other side of town, and he dutifully drove her there, his concern for her evident in every worried glance. As she left, she felt a pull, a strange sense of gratitude towards this kind, broken man. She offered him a crumpled $20 bill for his trouble, a gesture he refused with a gentle shake of his head. "Keep it," he'd said, his voice weary but firm. "You look like you need it more than me. Take care of that ankle." It was a simple kindness, yet it cut through the layers of cynicism and survival that she had built around herself. She watched him drive away, the red taillights of his ancient truck swallowed by the rain, and for the first time in months, she felt a flicker of something she thought she had lost: faith in humanity. But their paths were destined to cross again. A week later, Arthur was at the same spot, the hospital where his daughter received her treatments, walking out with a new prescription and a heart heavy with the doctor's somber update. He was so lost in his own thoughts that he didn't see the woman in the nurse's uniform approaching him until she was right there. It was Samantha. She was, in truth, following a lead, using the hospital as a cover to meet a contact. She saw him, saw the profound sorrow etched into the lines on his face, and without a second thought, her professional mission evaporated. Her disguise felt fraudulent in front of his real, tangible pain. She touched his arm gently. "You're Arthur, right? The man who helped me in the rain." He blinked, a faint, sad smile touching his lips. "Oh yes. Samantha, how's your ankle?" It was such a normal, mundane question in the face of the chaos that was his life that it startled her. She felt a strange, protective surge. "It's much better, thanks to you. Are you okay? You look like you've got the weight of the world on your shoulders." He tried to deflect, to offer a polite excuse, but she wouldn't let him. Her stubborn insistence was a subtle echo of the tenacity she used in her real job. Finally, like a dam breaking, he confessed. He told her about Chloe, about the cancer, about the bills that were piling up, and the hope that was slowly, agonizingly, fading away. He spoke of his constant terror of losing the only person who made his life worth living. Samantha listened, her heart clenching. In her line of work, she heard lies and deceptions every day, but the raw, unfiltered pain in his voice was an absolute truth. She saw the real-world consequences of the cruelty she fought against. It wasn't a statistic. It was this man, this good and gentle man, standing in the fluorescent glare of a hospital corridor, being slowly crushed by a system he couldn't afford. The single mother struggling to make ends meet, the family torn apart by violence. They were all faces, but Arthur was now a person. Her mission, the drug she was tracking, suddenly seemed like an abstract concept, a distant war compared to the intimate battle being fought in this man's heart. Over the next few weeks, a beautiful and unlikely friendship blossomed. Samantha, still maintaining her cover, would meet Arthur and Chloe for coffee, or she would visit Chloe in the hospital, reading her stories and painting her nails with cheerful, glittery polish. She brought a lightness into their lives, a sense of normalcy that they had been desperately missing. Arthur found himself looking forward to her visits, her sharp wit and quiet strength a comfort he hadn't realized he needed. For Samantha, the Jenkins family became a sanctuary from her own dangerous, duplicitous life. She felt a sense of purpose that transcended her badge. She was helping them, providing emotional support, and, occasionally, slipping Arthur a few $100s that she claimed was from a charity fund. The lie was a small, necessary one to protect them from the truth of her own life. The danger, however, was not from her lies, but from the criminals she was hunting. The drug ring she was investigating was led by a man named Victor, a ruthless and paranoid kingpin. He had begun to suspect a leak in his organization. After one of her colleagues was found dead, a clear message of intimidation, Samantha knew her cover was about to be blown. The operation was in its final, most dangerous stages. It was then that she made a critical error. In a moment of weakness and fear for Arthur and Chloe, she used a burner phone from her apartment to check on him. The call was traced. Victor's men didn't find her, but they found a connection, a piece of a puzzle they couldn't understand. The mechanic with the sick daughter. One terrifying night, Victor didn't send his men after Samantha. He found Arthur's address, the one she had foolishly called from her safe house. They broke down the door to the modest apartment, smashing the few pieces of furniture and shattering the framed photos on the wall. Chloe was screaming, and Arthur was trying to shield her, his face a mask of desperate, primal fear. A brute of a man with a scarred face grabbed Arthur by the collar and held a knife to his throat. "Where is your nurse friend? The one with the pretty eyes and the fake smile?" he snarled. Arthur was terrified, but his mind raced. He didn't know the truth about Samantha, but he saw the violence, the pure evil in this man's eyes, and he knew that if he gave her up, this terror would never end. He spat in the man's face. "I don't know who you're talking about," he said, his voice shaking but resolute. The man laughed, a cold, cruel sound. "You think you're a hero?" He backhanded Arthur across the face, sending him crashing into the wall. He then turned his attention to a wide-eyed, trembling Chloe. Maybe we'll make your little girl talk instead. It was the pivotal moment. A father's worst nightmare. Arthur, seeing the threat to his daughter, felt a surge of adrenaline that overwhelmed his fear. He threw himself at the man, a wild, desperate attack to save his child. He was strong from years of manual labor, but he was no fighter. The man easily overpowered him, but the chaotic struggle bought them precious seconds. In that moment of distraction, the world exploded. The front doors splintered as a tactical team swarmed the apartment, their movements a blur of black tactical gear and shouted commands. Samantha was with them, but not in her nurse's scrubs. She was clad in a bulletproof vest, her badge on full display, a sleek pistol in her hand. Her eyes were cold steel, and her voice was a sharp, commanding bark that echoed off the walls. The drug ring was dismantled in a matter of minutes. Victor and his men subdued and cuffed. It was over. Samantha walked over to where Arthur was slumped on the floor, cradling a sobbing Chloe. His face was bruised, his lip was bleeding, and his eyes were wide with a shock that went beyond the violence. They were filled with confusion, betrayal, and a deep, aching hurt. He stared at her, at the badge, at the gun, and saw her for who she truly was. The kind nurse who read stories to his daughter, the friend who brought them hot soup, the woman he had allowed into the most vulnerable corners of his heart, was a stranger. A cop. A lie. His eyes, the same eyes that had shown her such simple kindness in the rain, were now filled with a sorrow so profound it was like a physical blow. All of the trust, all of the comfort she had given them, suddenly felt like a transaction, a part of her job. His voice was barely a whisper, cracked and broken. You were lying to me this whole time? He didn't wait for an answer. He just pulled Chloe closer, trying to shield her from a truth far more devastating than the violence she had just witnessed. Samantha's professional facade, the wall she had built for years, finally crumbled. She knelt on the floor, no longer a detective, but a woman drowning in shame and regret. Tears, hot and real, streamed down her face. It was my job, Arthur, she pleaded, her voice raw. But you were never a job. Not to me. Not to Chloe. You were my anchor. You showed me what was real. That moment in the rain, your kindness, it saved me. Not just my life, but my soul. I know I broke your trust, but if I had told you the truth, I would have put you in danger. The only way to keep you safe was to be someone else. She explained everything. The case, the danger, the lengths she had to go to in order to protect them from a threat they couldn't even imagine. Her words were a torrent of confession and despair. She reached out a hand, not to touch him, but to offer a promise. The only real thing in my life was you two. I will spend forever making this up to you. I can help you, Arthur. The help you need for Chloe. I have resources. People. I can get her the best care in the country. Her promise wasn't a line. It was a vow she had already set in motion. Over the next few months, using her connections within the police department and the Witnesses Protection Program, Samantha spearheaded a campaign to secure a life-saving bone marrow transplant for Chloe. It was a long and arduous road, filled with setbacks and moments of crippling fear, but Samantha was relentless. She was no longer a secret agent. She was a fierce guardian, fighting for a little girl she had come to love and a man she had grown to respect more than anyone she had ever met. Arthur, in turn, slowly began to heal. The betrayal was a scar, but over time, he came to understand that Samantha's deception was born from a need to protect, not to harm. He saw the genuine devotion in her actions, the way she held Chloe's hand during the painful treatments, the way she looked at him with eyes that held nothing but remorse and a love that was slowly building. This story is about an unbreakable connection forged in the most unexpected of places, a testament to the fact that kindness is never wasted, and that sometimes the person who is pretending is the one who needs to be saved the most. It's a reminder that love, sacrifice, and second chances are the most powerful forces in the world. If this story touched your heart, please show your support by liking the video and sharing it with someone who needs to be reminded that hope is always there. It helps us continue to share these stories of healing and love. The transplant was a success. Chloe's health slowly but surely began to improve. The color returned to her cheeks, and her laughter, once a rare and precious sound, now filled their lives. Arthur and Samantha, having weathered the worst of storms, both literal and metaphorical, found their way back to each other. They had built a foundation not on a lie, but on a shared experience of profound hardship and survival. It was the kind of love that didn't need a fairy tale beginning, only a painfully honest ending. Their journey was a testament to the fact that even in the darkest of rains, a single act of compassion can light a path home. We hope you enjoyed this story. Please leave a comment below with your thoughts. We'd love to hear what you think about Arthur and Samantha's journey. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories that remind us of the best parts of being human.